Hi, I am Father Jose Poch, Senior Pastor of St. David's Anglican Church. This is the sixth and last session in our introduction to Anglican worship. In this session, I want to introduce you to some of the visible elements you will see generally when you worship in an Anglican church. I will introduce you briefly to what you will see at the altar and at some of the vestments our clergy normally wear. One of the things you will surely notice the moment you enter the church are the colors and how they change depending on the seasons of the church calendar, whether it's Advent or Christmas or Lent, Easter, Pentecost. The colors that we usually use at church are the white, the green, purple, and red. We have been created to be visual people, and so we worship with our eyes as well. Let me introduce you a moment to the things on the altar. This is how you would probably find the altar set up each Sunday for Eucharist. This here is called the burse, or where we get the word at times for purse or pocket. Inside the pocket is what we call the corporal, as well as what we call purificators. Purificators are exactly that. They're used to clean the chalice, they're used to clean the paten, which I'll introduce you to in a moment. They are inside the pocket, and we use them. This is the veil. The veil is usually in the color of the season, as you will see here, and it serves to cover the entire set of Eucharistic vessels. This is known as the pall. The pall is what gives shape to the setting so that it is square, but it is also a pall is what covers the body or the paten. In the paten, this is the paten, which is a word for bread. It comes from the Latin, and it is a word for bread. It is basically a plate, a small plate, that has been consecrated for the use of communion so that we can serve the host. This is a large host. Usually it would be placed in the center here. This is the purificator, which I introduced you to just a few moments ago, which serves to clean as people are taking communion. And this is the chalice. The chalice is the cup that we use for wine in the communion. And this pretty much is what is used for communion services in an Anglican setting. Let me now introduce you to some of the vestments that clergy use. This is Father Steve Kennedy, one of my assistants here at St. David's, and he's demonstrating for us today some of the vestments that clergy normally would wear in a Eucharistic service in the Anglican tradition. The first thing you would notice is what we call the alb. The alb is a white long robe with long sleeves that signify the purity with which we approach the altar and the worship of God. It is a purity not of our own, but rather signifying the purity of Christ placed upon us that covers us before the Lord. The alb can be found described somewhat in the vestments of the priests in the Old Testament, but it is also to be found sometimes in the New Testament as well, where, for example, the clothing that Jesus wore, the robe that he wore, which at the time of crucifixion was removed from him, and soldiers cast lots to see who would get it. You will also see that Father Steve is wearing what we call a cincture, or a girdle, or a rope, which is what holds together the vestments. It is a reminder of the belt of truth that St. Paul describes as the spiritual armor of the believer in Ephesians 6. You'll also see the colorful stole that Father Steve is wearing. It basically for us represents the yoke of Christ that we are asked to put on as part of the responsibility placed on us as priests for the people of God. Father Steve has now put on top of the alb and the stole, he has put on what we call the chasuble. The chasuble is a reminder of the breastplate of righteousness and the shield of faith, also described in Ephesians by St. Paul. One of the things that is important that you realize in Anglican form of worship is that we dress for a celebration. We don't dress down, we rather dress up. We are very conscious that we're coming invited by the Lord to a very special meal, a meal of communion with Him. And so all of the vestments that you see Father Steve wearing are vestments of celebration. I pray that this set of short videos are helpful to you as a brief introduction to our Anglican worship, and that you will feel comfortable in joining us for worship. Thank you for watching them, and please feel free to contact us with any questions or comments you might have. Let us worship the Lord our God together. He is worthy to be praised.